It almost doesn't seem real. You could have convinced me I never went.
I'll tell you, it is still difficult to believe that this is happening.
I came back and my memories were there, but it almost didn't seem real. You could have convinced me I never went.
And believing that it could happen,
that it's hard to grasp at all.
how insignificant really we are as humans.
It almost didn't seem real. I think we tend to live in our bubble of our world that's here.
It's difficult to describe exactly how it just feels different.
So when you look at the Earth from that vantage point, I know others have said this, you don't see the borders. You don't see political borders, you hardly see geographical borders.
You know, we're so used to looking at maps or globes. In low Earth orbit, you don't see a globe. In low Earth orbit, you don't see a globe. In low Earth orbit, you don't see a globe.
The entire experience is actually very surreal. First, you're launched on a rocket. You're pulling G's as you're going out of the atmosphere. You're looking at the Earth for the first time. You're floating. Everything is different, and it just is all just such a different experience that
Everything just floats. And sometimes that is really difficult to believe that it could actually be true.
it almost doesn't seem real.
It's so amazing and such an incredible feeling that it's difficult to believe sometimes that it's actually happening.
It almost doesn't seem real. In fact, when I did my space shuttle flight for 2 weeks in 2008, when I got back, you could have convinced me I never went.
Difficult to believe that it could actually be true.
You could have convinced me I never went. This experience is so unusual and so different than anything you've ever done in your life
I didn't think that it would actually come true.
that it's hard to grasp at all.
Well, I kind of have two moons in my head, I guess, whereas most people just have one moon. I look at the moon just like everybody else who's never been there. You know, there it is, and I've always thought it was interesting. Whether it's full or a sliver or what have you. But every once in a while, I do think of the second moon, you know, the one that I recall from up close. And yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that I was actually up there.
I want to promise you I'm human. I pinched myself to find out whether it was really happening. I called the moon my home for 3 days of my life, and I'm here to tell you about it. That's science fiction.
My father was born shortly after the Wright brothers. He could barely believe that I went to the moon.
Hard to believe that I was actually up there.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Barely believe.
Science fiction.
Hard to believe that I was actually up there. Actually up there.
Science fiction.
Actually up there.
Science fiction.
Because there's no gravity, you're floating. Because there's no gravity, you're floating.
Science fiction.
Because there's no gravity.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
We didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
We didn't.
And that's the way it happened. It didn't happen, and that's the way it happened. They'll make sure you go to school.
Continue to just produce imagery of all types. And the more we put out there, the more real it becomes to everyone. And the more we put out there, the more real it becomes to everyone.
And sometimes that is really difficult to believe that it could actually be true. Difficult to believe that this is happening. It's difficult to believe sometimes that it's actually happening. And sometimes that is really difficult to believe that it could actually be true.
You could have convinced me I never went.